Good evening, my dear colleagues. Welcome to another Inget Zoom Serious Talk. Today, our guest is Dr. Suzan Öniz. Suzan Hocam has been an invaluable Inget board member and a great friend for a long time. She worked at the Department of Basic English of the Middle East Technical University until she retired. As you have noticed, we are not giving any dates. So there's no maths here. She was an instructor, teacher educator, tester, and materials writer, besides being the coordinator and tutor of the DOTI and COTI diploma for overseas teachers of English or certificate for overseas teachers of English programs at the Middle East Technical University. She also worked as an ESL instructor while she was in Canada. Her interests include teacher education, learner styles, academic writing, and IT. The title of her talk this evening is A Practical Idea for ELT Learners to Self-Edit Paragraphs for Better Cohesion. Suzan Hocam, thank you very much for being with us. We are all ears, excited to be here listening to you. So I'm leaving the screen to you.
Okay. Thank you very much for this warm welcome. You made me feel really comfortable and happy and warm. And seeing some familiar faces, thank you very much to all of you for taking this time and spending your Friday evening with us. I'm really honored. Thank you very much. I hope you can use some of the ideas that I'm going to talk about in your classes. We'll see. We'll see. I'm here to spread the virus, and we'll see if you are immune or not. Okay. Let me start with the title. The title starts off by saying it's a practical idea that I'm going to talk about. Well, actually, it's not just one idea. It's a bag of several ideas neatly packaged in this bag. And together they make one idea which will help students become aware of cohesion in a formal paragraph in English. In English, I say, because I have no idea how all of this works in Turkish. I've been teaching English, so I know everything about English writing, but I don't know anything about how to write a perfect paragraph, a good paragraph in Turkish. But anyway, that's beside the point. I'm going to steal part of the quote that Defne Akıncı-Midas used in her presentation. Yes, Defne. To show you that today I'm going to talk about basically formal writing. I'm not going to talk about creative writing. So if you're interested in creative writing, you should go to the Inget Türkiye YouTube channel and listen to what Defne Akıncı-Midas has to say about creative writing. I'm going to do the other side of this writing business. I'm doing the formal side. Here it says formal, professional, journalistic, academic, technical forms of literature. Well, let's just say formal writing. And what I mean is any kind of cohesive paragraph writing. So the ideas can be used in secondary education. So if you're a secondary teacher, you can use these ideas. If you're a university teacher, you can use these ideas with your university students. It's not just for, I was in a university environment, so I did it at the university, but it's totally adaptable to secondary school as well. These days, some people are worrying that they're getting redundant because of ChatGPT and all of these wonderful devices that are available. Whoops, wait, that are available I hear, I was going to take a note and give you the name, but I can't remember the name now. I wrote it down somewhere. There's another similar AI program which creates original pictures. Can you believe it? So you can write maybe a manga if you're interested in that, or you can create a painting picture if you're interested in that. And the input can be anything. It can be another picture to create pictures, or it can be a verbal, some kind of verbal input, and then the output is the picture. It's amazing where artificial intelligence is going. But I'm going to stay with normal intelligence. Me, inshallah, I have still normal intelligence. And I'm going to talk about what I did in my classes. Some of the ideas that I used in my classes, I will share with you. Teachers always, when there's something newish on the horizon, they ask also, where do we start? How do we start? Well, the starting point for me has always been on the lexical level. When I teach vocabulary, I use cinco fopo with my students. It's something sort of stupid, but I created it, but it's memorable. And so my students remember cinco fopo. And what this means is the sin part refers to synonyms. So when you're teaching any kind of lexical item, you give the meaning. You give the meaning of the word. You give examples of how it is used. You give synonyms, antonyms, maybe, whatever. Every teacher has some tricks up her or his sleeve, and you introduce the word. Synonyms come in the picture. And I'm talking from my experience. My students, especially in the second semester, the ones that I haven't trained, the ones that come from other classes, or at the very beginning of the semester, when students first come to my class, they think synonyms are just, random words. Yeah, they're interchangeable. Ali, veli. Yeah, it doesn't really matter. Yeah, you have these words, they mean the same thing. So I think that's one of the places where we can start telling students that synonyms are words that are very similar in meaning, but not necessarily interchangeable in every instance. Each word has its own meaning, its own environment, and its own set of collocations. And the collocations actually determine the environment, which brings us to ko. So ko is for collocation, should be call, but it doesn't sound so nice. So, sing ko, po. That's why it's ko. So the collocation part, I introduce lexical items with their collocations on the left and on the right, so that students can see in which environment the word is used. The minute you give the collocations of a word, you're also showing students how it is used. For example, the other day we were doing, I was doing a Zoom session with a group of young university students to improve their spoken English, and we were doing collocations, and we just took the simple word house, and one of the items that comes to the right of house is house calls, to make house calls. So on the left, make house calls. And I asked them, and I said, so where are we now? Which environment are we in? And it's the medical environment. Doctors, nurses, medically trained personnel come and make house calls. Whereas when you say house to house, now the environment is the police station. I'm thinking of, some kind of police officers going house to house, trying to find a witness for some kind of crime that has been committed in the neighborhood. So collocations are really helpful to show students what that word, what that lexical item requires in terms of environment, what it means in different environments. So cinco. Four brings us to formality. This is another, it's a heartache of mine, because for a long time, I wasn't aware of formality really too much. When I was at university, we wrote papers, and I always got really high grades, and I thought I was doing well. I could speak English, I could discuss, I could, defend my ideas, etc., etc. But then we went to Canada, and the first paper that I wrote in Canada got a C+. I was shocked. What, C+? Bana ne? Plasmas. It's C. C. The letter is C. And I thought, C, how can I get a C? It's not that I'm super ambitious and I need to get an A, but I hadn't, I wasn't expecting that at all. And the professor had written, you have very good ideas, but you need to learn how to write a formal academic paper. Now, the next shock was, okay, fine, but what do I do? What's wrong with my paper? I don't understand, because I had no idea that I was actually writing in the way I was speaking. Okay, when I speak, my words flow, and when I write, the same words flow, this time via pencil, And I thought that was okay, because I had never been warned in the past years at university level that I was writing informally. Maybe I luckily was writing sort of formally without knowing it. And in Canada, I didn't do that. And unluckily, I wrote it very informal. Anyway, long story short, I really became aware of formal writing. And so when I came back to Turkey and I was training teachers and I was working with students, this was one of the things that I always brought to the forefront, because I thought this is important. And obviously, if I didn't catch on to this in my language education background, probably other people haven't either, and they don't know. And if they're not writing papers to be published in journals, they will never know. But they should be aware of it. So, okay. Formality. So when I'm introducing vocabulary, remember I said lexical level. In addition to talking about synonyms and collocations, I talk about formality as well. Excuse me. I chose these items randomly. These are not specially selected. And my students, when they're writing in the beginning of the first semester or in the beginning of the second semester, new set of students, they write, a lot of, many, numerous, a large number of, Allah ne verdiyse, they kind of, whatever, at that point, whatever comes to their mind, they write it. They don't select the word because they're not aware of the level of formality in these words, okay? So this just shows that there are formal equivalents, and we're teaching them. And why not say, this is formal, this is informal, this is more for speaking, this is more for serious writing. Bitte, So that's the formality aspect. Of course, there's also the structural formality. I'm just giving you the notion that lexically, even on the lexical level, there's a lot to do. And we come now to the last item in our little package, which is position. So cinco for po. Po is the position. The position of the word in the sentence. Again, my students, especially in sort of June, around June, end of May, June, they start, tearing their hair out because the proficiency is coming up the end of the semester, end of the year, falan, falan, falan. And they're saying, yeah, Hocam, why do we have all these alternative structures when all of them are saying the same thing? Yeah, the message is one, the packaging of the message is different. Why do we have all these different structures for the same thing, This will only, they used to ask me, but once I started teaching them the importance of position, they stopped saying these things. But people will say this because they think that, active, passive, a structure starting with it is or there is just, depends on your mood. You feel like it and you throw in a sentence in the active. You don't feel like it, you throw in a sentence starting with there is, there are. We need to make our students aware that word position in a sentence is important. Writers place the important position, the important concepts at the beginning of the sentence. The writer's concentration point is usually at the beginning of the sentence, unless they use a structure which is emphatic. We're not going to look at those. We're just looking at plain sentences. So in a normal, regular, plain sentence, what comes at the beginning is something that the writer is concentrating on and wants the reader to pay attention to. And this is called, do I have, let me see. No, sorry. Okay. This is a prestigious position, the beginning of the sentence. It's possible to move around concepts in a sentence from sentence initial to mid-sentence position or to sentence final position through these random seemingly random structures. The active and the passive does exactly that. It shifts around words from beginning to end, or even makes words disappear from the sentence, but because they become the agent or something, and we don't need to mention it. So we need to explain to students that structures help us position the idea that we want to put at the beginning, or more in the middle, or at the end. This is called the focus of the sentence. But before we go there, let's have a look at some one set of examples. Okay. Here, this is something I use with my students, and I say, notice Istanbul. Look at the word Istanbul, where it is. It can be in a set of different positions in the sentence, depending on what kind of structure you use. Some of these sentences are more desirable than others, formal writing-wise, but we're now just looking to see in English, what can you do with word position? This, of course, is now related to the level of the learners. I mean, this is more like, intermediate and upper. If they're beginners, they are very limited in structures, and this is out of the question, but they can be made aware of the fact that this sentence focuses on such and such idea because it's at the beginning. And once that sticks to their brain, the more structures accumulate, they will be able to adapt. So this brings us to the focus of the sentence is what the writer wants the reader to notice. And that's at the beginning of the sentence. Fine, sounds good. But there are rules. You can't just throw any concept, any word, any group of words at the beginning of a sentence if you want to do it properly. There are rules. And the basic rule is, has this concept been mentioned before? Old information. Or are you introducing this item, this concept for the first time here? All right. According to formal English writing, the beginning of a sentence has to be old information. It can't be new. If you are Cem Yılmaz, or if you're some other, English-speaking comedian or something, and you want to shock people, because when there's something new at the beginning, you kind of say, huh? And you're baffled academically when you're reading an academic passage. But when you're listening to a comedian, that's what the effect that they want to create, so that they will use it. We're not comedians. We're not stage performers. We just want to write paragraphs that flow, and paragraphs in which the ideas are easy to follow for the reader. So old, new information. Old information comes at the beginning. New information comes in the middle or at the end. So the focus, in order for the focus of a sentence to be proper, it has to be old information, meaning in the prior sentence, it has to be introduced first, and then you can start talking about it. If you look at our example sentences here at the bottom, I've picked 3. These are, of course, hanging in space. I mean, they have no context here. There's no paragraph around them, no other sentences there. But as experienced readers, by looking at these sentences, we can make some assumptions, like with the first one, a large variety of cultures can be found in Istanbul. So a large variety of cultures is seems to be the focus. Probably in the sentence before, the writer was talking about cultures and the varieties of cultures. So here, now, he is beginning to talk about a large variety of cultures. Can he not continue with the concept of Istanbul? Of course he can. Maybe Istanbul is the new information that he is presenting here. So the next sentence could be Istanbul, da, 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 da. The second sentence could be the next one that follows. Could be. It doesn't have to be. But we're looking at now what the effect is. In the second one, Istanbul is the home to a large variety of cultures. This is a Istanbul paragraph. It's a paragraph about Istanbul. The third one is my favorite sentence because we are using the structure there is, there are, which is very helpful if you want to introduce something and you don't want to write some other sentences to introduce your concept. Without delay, you want to introduce your concept, but you can't put it at the beginning. So you kind of postpone the appearance by pushing it into the middle position, and you use there is, there are. So there is, there are is a very handy structure to introduce new information, because at the beginning, we have something empty, meaningless. There is, there are, that doesn't carry meaning. Grammatically, it fulfills a function. Meaning-wise, it's empty. The actual concept is in the middle. So this could be a sentence that introduces a variety of cultures, or it could be introducing Istanbul. I don't know, because we don't know the paragraph. But by looking at sentences, we can judge what comes before, what came before, and what probably comes after. Now, having talked about these things with the students, of course, practicing is very important, actually, doing stuff with this information. I like to do group work. When it's face-to-face in class. When it's on Zoom, I like to have the separate rooms and people working on different ideas. So whatever medium you're working in, groups are nice. I like pairs a lot. In Zoom, I think pairs works very well. Threes also works well. In face-to-face, threes work quite well. 4, 5, I think it's too crowded. They're probably the fourth and fifth person is probably going to just float on what the others are doing. So to keep them really busy, pairs or little groups of 3. So I tell students that they're going to get a little slip of paper with 3 nouns on it. And what I want them to do is I want them to write 3 sentences, each sentence starting with one of the words that has been put on the slip. So that means they are writing 3 sentences with 3 different focuses, and they have to incorporate the other 2 words as well. So, and then I give them an example. Excuse me, let me just make this smaller so I can see. Okay, so if it's effect, people, and music, let's see, effect. They could say something like, there are many positive effects of music on people, or one of the effects, or the most important effect of music is that it relaxes people, etc. I mean, just 1 or 2 sentence examples. People. So people at the beginning. People are positively affected by music in many ways. So instead of effect the noun, we now have the verb, which is okay. Some people are unaffected by certain types of music. Okay. So it depends on what you want to say. And the music as the focus. Music has different effects on different people. Music is well known for its positive effects on people. Music generally affects people positively. So it's basically the same meaning, but you kind of juggle with the terms and put them in different positions. So this is one thing that they can do. You may, now getting them to do stuff is fun, but after pair work, you need to check their work. So if you have, I don't know, 6, 7 pairs, 8 pairs or groups in your class, and you have 3 sentences per pair, that's going to take a long time to check. So probably to be practical, you could sort of, if you have, let's say, 8 or 6 pairs, groups, whatever, you could use 2 sets of different words. So 3 pairs or 3 groups do 1 set of 3 words, and the others do another. So you have actually 6 sentences to check. Yeah, and I'm always thinking meta-wise, because in meta we have very limited time, and any minute you do something outside the book, you have to run and do it and make sure you stay on schedule. So anyway, but that's your classroom management. I'm just suggesting, so you do whatever you like. Another thing. Another thing that you could do is use the reading text that you have covered in class. You can ask students. I ask students to do it on their own. I don't choose it, but they can choose any reading passage they like, or I say, okay, choose reading text. I don't know, 16, the last one that we did, whatever. So they look at the reading passage. Either everybody looks at the same passage, or students just do whatever they like and look at different passages. It's up to you. Write a sentence about the passage and specify your focus word. Then rewrite the same sentence using a different focus word. Specify your focus word. But what you're doing is you're trying to write a similar sentence, meaning-wise, trying to give the same message. And then continue writing such sentences until you feel confident, then give them to your teacher for checking. This seems to work well. They like to work on their own and do these things. Some students don't hand in anything. Bana ne? Yani, I can only suggest. I'm not a policewoman, but most of them do this, and it seems to help. Another one is my work. I have to work a little bit, so I choose certain sentences taken from the reading passages that we have covered, and I ask students to look at the sentence and look at the given alternatives and decide which one of the alternatives best fits as the following sentence. So what will come after the sentence that has been given? Let me show you the example. So every year there are 6 Grand Sumo tournaments in Japan. This is the sentence taken from a text that has been covered in class. So what do you think will come after this? Is it A or is it B? And they have to decide. So we discuss what happens. Like if you say A, 15 days, abo, what's 15 days? Where did 15 days come from? We don't have any mention of 15 days beforehand. Remember, I said comedians do this shocking thing, suddenly introducing a topic, but 15 days hasn't been mentioned at all. So it's a new concept at the beginning of a sentence without ever having been mentioned before. It's not something we prefer to do. So let's have a look at B. A tournament. Okay. Tournament usually lasts for 15 days. Okay. This is now all right. And we discuss this example with the students so that they get the idea as to what to do. And then they are given sentences which they work on. Sentences taken from the text that we have read in class. Another thing that needs to be looked at, in addition to the vocabulary and how the sentences are formed, is inter-sentence relationships, how the sentences are linked, physically, how they are linked. A paragraph is not like a shopping list of items of just sentence by sentence by sentence. They have to be meaningful in themselves, and they have to be linked to the sentence before and to the sentence that comes after it. So some kind of substitution, word replacement, or ellipsis in short, can be done. Noun to pronoun referencing can be done. Noun, or noun to verb with synonyms, or as we saw, effect and to affect, noun and verb. We need to explain what anaphoric, cataphoric reference is without talking about anaphoric and cataphoric, just, referring to the sentence just before, referring to the sentence coming after. And of course, cohesive devices, which in most cases are covered in class anyway, but these play an important role. So how to practice for the sentence linking idea? Have students identify all the words that stand for other words, other phrases, or a clause in a short familiar passage from material students are currently using in class. So after finishing maybe a reading passage, go back and pick a paragraph which is suitable for this and get them to tell you what these pronouns, what these synonyms stand for, what they refer to. That's all. Or have students draw lines or arrows to the words in sentences with their antecedents. So there should be lots and lots of arrows and lines going back and forward. And if there is a sentence with maybe one or no arrow, that means that sentence has a cohesion problem and it needs to be looked at. So there's something missing. It's kind of dangling in the middle of the paragraph. Or you can delete the pronouns. That means you have to work, get the passage, delete the pronouns, have students fill in the blanks, which is a very helpful, useful exercise because they have to really know what the blank there refers to and decide on the pronoun, or if you're just doing pronouns, have to decide on the pronoun. Another idea is practice idea 4, give students a passage in which names and other sentence components have been unnecessarily repeated. Ask them to substitute cohesive ties for the repetitious information. So editing, they have to edit the paragraph so that it doesn't look militarily repetitive, kind of. Well, this kind of wraps up the little bundle. And the title also talked about self-editing or peer editing. And here now, let's have a look at a careful look at what we have written as a teacher, as a student, whatever. So self-editing now, careful look at the paragraph. And I asked my students, after they finish writing, I asked them, look at these 3 things. Have you got this? They have a focus, of course. Now they know what the focus is. So is it the right word? Have you, vocabulary-wise, selected the right formal word, concept, best describing the situation that you want to describe? Is it in the correct position? And the second one is the focus old information? Has it been mentioned before? And the last question is, are the sentences linked to each other? Each sentence linked to the one before and after in some way. And so what they do is they just write 1, 2, 3. For one, they write A, B, 2, 3, and then tick, 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 hopefully. And this kind of brings us, I think, to the end. Let me cheat from my notes. Is there anything else that I wanted to mention? All right. Well, basically, this is the idea that I wanted to talk about. I chose this picture as the background because it's a window. This is one way of looking at formal writing. Looking into formal writing, into paragraphs, into lexical items, how to introduce them. As many yeats there are, that many ways of eating yogurt there are. So, this is my way of eating my yogurt, so you may have different ideas, and I'll be very happy to answer questions or listen to what you suggest. And if you want to write to me, my email is down here, suzanöniz@gmail. If you want me to share any of the slides or anything, I can do that, or, it will be on YouTube anyway, so you can see it. Thank you very much. So this is all that I want to talk about today.
Thank you very much. I think you have summarized a lot of information in a a wonderful manner of time management. Congratulations. This is something rare. My dear colleagues, do you have any questions or any comments? Maybe any remarks related to the presentation or the session? You can use the chat box, you can raise your hand. I don't know, or yes, Özlem is thanking you. Suzan Hocam, if you're done with your presentation, maybe you can stop sharing your screen.
All righty.
Yes, here we go. Suzan Hocam, while we are waiting for the others to just think whether they have any questions or not, I want to ask you something. You have mentioned that this is something that you did with your university students.
Mm-hmm.
Is it possible to do this, not at this level, of course, maybe adapting the level, with A1 students, younger students, younger A1 plus students?
I don't know, Jam. I didn't tutor, but I sort of my granddaughter's friend, who is a sailor and is on the national team, had to speak to foreigners a lot because they were traveling as a national team and wanted to be ready to be able to speak and also write a little bit. And he was in what was he for 7th grade. He is in 7th grade. So from time to time we do writing together, and I do these things with him. And we looked at some from Washington, from where else did we? From New York, at some of the sailing clubs' web pages, and we looked to see if they were hanging together properly. You know, I was always talking about hanging together, not cohesion, but hanging together. Were they glued together, the sentences? And we found a lot of instances, not continuously, but within a paragraph, a sentence which could have been worded much better. And the little guy, he did the rewording, and I said, well, you can even write them an email and say, in this paragraph, I think you should say this, and you can write that. And you will never be, they will never meet you at the sailing competitions. But anyway, yeah, I tried it. I tried it with secondary and ortaokul.
It worked,
and it works. You don't talk about the jargon. You make it smoother and more logical. But they have several structures available, and it's not just one type of sentence only. A1, I'm not sure. This kid, he could talk a little bit. He was a bit shy. And, he just had to sort of open his mouth and just let the language pour out. And then with little notes, I corrected him. His writing was the same. He could write well, but he wasn't aware of all these things. So he was writing a little bit Ali, Veli, 4950, so he learned to kind of write more cohesively, thinking about the first part of each sentence. He kept saying, Hocam, they never told us in our school this, nobody told us. I said, they will tell you later.
Yeah,
You're
that is the case,
early.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah. But even with A1 level students, I guess knowing that they shouldn't repeat the name of the person in each and every sentence, rather replacing it with the correct pronoun is a kind of cohesion.
Yeah.
Or, maybe using and, but,
simple
or,
connectors.
you
Sure,
know, very simple ones, but
Yep,
still they can, yani cohesion, the cohesion awareness, is there a term like that? I don't know, can begin at a very, very early stage. And I believe it is very important because after a certain, 7 is too late, they say, you know. When you start noticing these things at an early age, you better your English.
that's true.
So I think it is possible. Emre Hocam, Emre Hocam says, as a teacher candidate, I have writing problems. Is there any writing task for improving my writing skill? Emre Hocam, are you asking for a kind of a reference book or, you know, because when you say, is there any writing task? So are you asking for only one? Or I don't know. Suzan Hocam, is there anything that you can suggest for
Well, starting from
language teachers?
starting from these points
Mhm,
can help make. I don't know what the problem, what exactly the problem is, but
mhm, mhm,
I think first of all, there has to be a message ready in the
mhm,
head of the
mhm,
person. I
mhm,
mean, there has to be an urgent a monster in your head that wants
mhm,
to come out, something you want to share with the readers. So
mhm,
good ideas and supporting ideas.
mhm,
Uh, I mean, you need to do a little bit of research in order to make your idea more mature, more presentable, and
mhm,
then this is the wrapping paper of the gift. What I'm
mhm,
talking about is the packaging of the information. And you have to first have the information and your message, and then
mhm,
you need to know how to wrap it. This is
mhm,
one way of wrapping information, formal information,
mhm,
formally
mhm,
wrapping it. So maybe if Emre Hocam starts with looking at the formality levels, the cohesion level, the linking of the sentences, the bit about old and new information, where it goes and where it doesn't go. Um, yeah,
So
it should
working with
help.
some models, then starting to write, you're suggesting.
Yes,
Hüsnü
and
Hocam, you want to say something?
Yes. First
Mhm.
of all, thank you to Suzan for introducing this very practical idea and very nicely presented. My simple question would be, this is editorial, an editorial aspect of developing writing skill. What was the student response to such activities during the process? How did they react to you while you were applying this? Number one. Number two, did you see improvement in students' productive work later on? This is just editorial. I mean, did you follow this up with any research on how the product is coming out after such editorial work? Okay, can you say a few words on
Yeah,
this?
oh yeah. Well, at first they didn't really get it, and because I think they were thinking, how do we do this in Turkish? What do we do in
Hmm.
Turkish?
Mm,
And I said to them, because I'm a teacher of English, I'm looking at the English language. I'm not
Mhm,
teaching Turkish. Excuse me, I'm very sorry. I don't know what we do in Turkish.
mhm,
Forget Turkish. We're now looking at English. You can't
mhm,
translate. It doesn't work. You have to understand these concepts. And because I start at the word level, it goes, drop by drop.
mhm,
And then by the time we're writing paragraphs, actually, it's much easier for them if they know that this is a paragraph about, I don't know, they're talking about the graph of a city, falanca city, falanca city, falanca city, this city. And so
mhm,
we're initially, anyway, before we start writing, we brainstorm possible, likable, nice synonyms, alternatives for the same concept. I don't know, John was saying we can teach the student, A1 student, not to repeat the name all the time and use alternatives. Well, when you're writing at a higher level, one of the things that we brainstorm is, instead of X concept, what else can we say? How can we refer to it other than we could say this idea, this development, this project, this, that, this, you know, depending on the level of the students, you get lots of synonyms. So that's ready. And those are the words that they're going to put in sentence initial position. Bitti. It's so much easier. And they said to me that in this way, they already know what they're going to write. And they know the beginning of the sentence, and then they have to kind of find some kind of continuation. And they did. And it worked well. I mean, in the writing exams, when we exchanged papers with other colleagues, my students usually got pretty good grades.
Pretty good grades.
Yeah, yeah. And I was kind of ripping my hair out because this is so simple. You know, we should share this. We should all do this. It makes the writing, the paragraph much more easy to read. You don't stumble. If there's new information, you know, you're kind of stumbling and you're saying, huh? Did I miss something? Was this mentioned before? Because as an experienced reader, you don't expect new information at the beginning. But if it is there, you say, huh? Was it mentioned before? Was I sleeping while I was reading the other sentences? And it happens. You can lose your attention. Voila. And yes, it works. They were at first, in the second semester, when I got fresh students, who should have done these before but hadn't done them. They at first kind of, but when they saw that it makes writing so much easier, because now they can write. They in the back feedback that I received, they would say things like, "I didn't know that I could write so easily." They were saying things like that.
Made life easier.
Yani because it's formulaic. Yani it's predetermined almost.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
And the formula that you have suggested is pretty easy to follow.
Yeah.
So I don't think that students will have any problems with that. Hüseyin Hocam says, cohesion is an inherent feature of text in every language, the same with Turkish. It works fascinatingly well in the national anthem, a perfect example. Thank you, Hüseyin Hocam. Yes, I think the issue is, of course, we know that Turkish also has cohesion.
Of course.
Cohesion works with for all languages. However, I totally understand what Suzan Hocam is saying, because we have never studied Turkish formally, we don't know how to teach it. In fact, if we ask Suzan Hocam to teach us some Turkish now, most probably she will adapt English teaching strategies to teach us Turkish. So I totally understand the point. Yeah. So I'm just going to make a pirate session here. Just because someone speaks a language doesn't mean that they can teach it. Anything else in the chat box? By the way, Emre Hocam, as Suzan Hoca has mentioned in her presentation, you may want to first study on some model paragraphs, because those will help you to digest how to move on. I love working with models, because they show you the way, they lead the way. Anything else?
It's always helpful reading articles in journals, articles that you would like to write, similar articles similar to the ones that you're reading you want to write, if you can read those kinds of articles, you will see how the ideas flow, how they are presented, the cliches that have been used. There are lots and lots of formal writing cliches, bridging sentences and whatever. You know, those will start to stand out once you read several of these articles, because people use certain frameworks for writing articles. It's not
Yes.
creative writing. It's very formulaic, actually.
Yes, true.
Because the academic reader is going to do a lot of scanning,
Mm.
a lot of skimming. So
Mhm.
in order to successfully scan, and if you are a successful, experienced reader, you know what information is where in a passage, in an article. So you can quickly skip certain places because you're looking for specific information, and you know probably where it's going to appear. So you have to fulfill the expectations of the reader. And to learn about that, the best thing is to read similar articles.
And don't forget that this presentation is for the paragraph level.
Yes,
Of course, when
yes,
you move on to essay level or article level, of course, there are certain other things that you need to pay attention to. But of course, Suzan Hocam cannot put everything in one session. That's impossible. But I believe the idea that she presented here can be adapted for any level and any age group. That's what I like about this. Very simple, very practical. So thank you very much. I do appreciate it. I cannot see any other questions in the chat box. People are thanking you, congratulating you for this amazing session. So the only thing I can say is millions of thanks to you. And it's always a pleasure to listen to you. Thanks a lot. Take very good care of yourself. If
All
you
of
do
you.
not have any other questions, I'm going to wrap the session up. Is that okay with you, my dear colleagues? Yes, our speaker is already nodding, so she's ready.
Well, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. And my dear colleagues, take very good care of yourselves and hope to see you next week with another distinguished speaker. Suzan Hocam, love you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.